Cade Cunningham has signed his rookie extension officially. The Detroit Pistons introduced JB Bickerstaff, and they've also made numerous signings since I left last week. We're going to be talking about all of that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. You'll hear more about GameTime a little bit later. I'm back. Now, I was going to play Eminem's Guess Who's Back again, but can't do that. But I am back. Thank you guys all who wished me to have a great, made sure I had a great vacation asking about it. I did have a great time with my wife and my sister-in-law over in Iceland. It was a lot of fun. Very relaxing, very peaceful. So I feel recharged and I feel really good. So I had a lot of fun. So thank you guys all that were asking about it and hoping I had a good time. I appreciate you guys. While I was over there, I tried to put out little snippets and little shorts for you guys on some of the news that happened with the Detroit Pistons over the time that I was gone, like all the Pistons signings. I tried to talk a little bit about JB Bickerstaff. But got back today, flew back in, drove home, and just within today, Cade Cunningham officially signed his rookie max extension. JB Bickerstaff has an introduction. And obviously, like I said, we haven't really had a full episode to talk about the Pistons signing. So we're going to try to talk about all that in today's episode. And obviously on the future episodes, the next few days, we'll dive even further. That's my plan, to dive even further on the Pistons signings that they've made. So just stay tuned for the next few days. I appreciate all you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to talk about the Pistons and talk with you guys again. I feel like I've been gone for a while, and I haven't really been gone that long. But let's get into it. So first place we're starting off with is Cade Cunningham has officially signed his rookie max extension. The contract is a 5-year, $224 million contract extension, and it can be as max, or I should say it can go upwards to $269 million if he were to make an all-NBA team. So the first thing I want to say in regards to Cade signing this extension is I want to say congratulations to him. Congratulations to his team. I'm incredibly happy for him. I'm incredibly happy for all of them. This is a lot of work. This is a big time achievement. I want to say congratulations to Cade. Incredibly happy for him. He's incredibly driven, which is something JB Bickerstaff talked about at his introductory press conference. We'll talk about a little later. He's incredibly driven. He wants to win for Detroit, and he wants to get back. I know he's grinding this offseason. He has been working out nonstop since the season ended. So there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to work to be worth every bit of this contract and even more. I have no doubts about that. So I'm happy for him. And I think this is going to be a good contract for the Pistons in a few years. And he's going to be the person that leads the Pistons out of where they've been at. So I'm extremely happy about seeing Cade officially get this rookie extension. Now, obviously, there's talk that has to come with it. Moving past just, the congratulatory stuff and being nice and all that. Once signing this rookie extension, especially an extension worth this type of money, the rookie max, like I said, upwards of $269 million if he makes an all-NBA team. When this happens, pressure immediately gets put on. Now, I'm nowhere near am I trying to take like the happiness or the excitement away from Pistons fans. I'm going to remain excited about it. I'm a huge fan of Cade's game. I really like Cade. So I'm not trying to say don't be excited and don't be happy about it at all. But from the basketball analysis point, there is pressure now that immediately comes with signing that contract on the Detroit Pistons. And there's going to be a lot of pressure now on Cade after signing this extension. Now, the first place I want to start with is on the Pistons side. I said when the Pistons drafted Cade, I believe it was my first offseason with Locked On Pistons. By the way, for those of you guys listening, there are 9 Locked On NBA channels who have now officially crossed over 10K subscribers on YouTube. We are 1,500 subscribers away. If you are listening on the podcast platforms or on YouTube, please go over and hit that subscribe button. We are trying to be the 10th Locked On NBA channel to make it to 10,000. Continue to show we are the fastest growing fan base at Locked On Network. So please, I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. Help us get to 10K before anyone else does. But like I said, in my first offseason on Locked On Pistons and the Pistons drafted Cade, I said immediately drafting him, the timer is going to start now. And you may say it officially starts when he signs that extension, but once you get that number 1 overall pick and you draft Cade, your timer starts then. If the timer didn't start then, it definitely has started now. You have to put out a winning product around Cade. You have to be able to win or build a winning product around Cade soon. That doesn't mean you need to sacrifice everything to be a mediocre team. You just need to be respectable. You need to show that you are making progression to being a legit team. You can no longer be at the bottom of the league again. You can't be a bottom 3 team in the NBA again. There is pressure now on the Detroit Pistons to build a successful team with Cade, because every single one of these guys that we see this happen with that signed the rookie extension, what happens? 2 years go by. If the things are not going well, start to hear trade rumors, potentially start to hear trade requests. If you build a good team around them and you have success, then obviously they stay for a long time. But once you sign that rookie extension, the timer is starting on a potential trade with that guy if you don't put a good team around them. So the ticker is going for the Detroit Pistons. They need to do it. But it's not just from the Pistons side. I know a lot of people probably were expecting me to talk about the Pistons side and how they need to put a winner around Cade. And they do. They need to put a good team around Cade, 100%. I'm going to continue to hammer that through. But there is a lot of pressure on Cade too now. And this is coming from, again, someone who's a big fan of Cade's game and believes heavily in him. Once you sign this contract, you have to be worth this contract. With this new CBA, I won't sit here and act like I'm the absolute master Keith Smith of the CBA. But I've been reading up on it. I've been trying to understand what it all means and how it's going to affect teams moving forward. One of the main things I've come away with after trying to follow up on the CBA, you cannot have max contract guys, which is part of the reason why you're seeing dudes like Zach LaVine, who are good players, guys like Brandon Ingram, who are good players, not be able to be traded, or maybe not being able to be traded, but that's more with LaVine. But maybe in Ingram's case, teams would like him, but if he wants that max, we can't give that to you. That's what teams are saying, and it's because of this new CBA. If you are going to have max players, guys who are taking up that percentage of your cap space, they have to be worth that contract. They cannot be half the contract. They can't be 75% of the contract. They have to be worth that contract that you are giving them, or it's going to be incredibly hard for you to build anything with that. It's going to be hard to do it, especially if you're going to have 2 of those slots. Now, the Pistons only have 1 right now, but point is, with this new CBA, it means more than ever that guys at the top of your salary cap have to be worth the contract that they are given. Therefore, Cade, you have to get better. I think Cade is tremendous. I think he had a really good season this past year. I thought he showcased the reason for giving him this extension. I think he showcased why you should believe in him to be worth every bit of this contract. But is the player he is right now worth the contract? No. And that's not how it usually goes. Like, no, you don't pay the guys who get the rookie extension. They're not getting paid because they're already superstars, unless you're like Luka, who was a superstar in like his second year or whatever. But like, you're not getting paid after 2 years, 3 years because you're already a superstar. You're getting paid because you are showing that trajectory and they're paying you for the future, which I think Cade is showing. Cade has shown that trajectory, but now he has to actually get there. Cade has to be better. The Pistons need to build a team around him, but Cade Cunningham needs to show that he can be the one to lead the Detroit Pistons out of this mess that they've been in. He needs to show that he is going to be the one to lead the Pistons back to glory. He has to improve. He has to get better in every facet of his game. He needs to come back next year, I believe, as an all-star, and he needs to come back as an eventual all-NBA player by 2026. So not this upcoming season. I don't expect him to be all-NBA immediately. More, team success and all that stuff. But within 2 years, he needs to be, maybe he doesn't need to be named all-NBA, I guess, in the next 2 years, but he needs to be talked about like one of those guys that could be getting votes. That's where Cade needs to be. And Cade understands that. His team understands that. I think everyone understands that. He wants the pressure, and that's why I think so many people believe in Cade. Not just because of his on-court play, obviously, but because he wants that pressure. He accepts it. He wants to get better. He works incredibly hard. I'm telling you guys, I know for a fact he's been working out nonstop every single day since the end of the season. This is a guy who knows the pressure that's on him, what he has to do to get Detroit out of where it's at, and the pressure that comes with not only being the number one pick, but comes with signing a contract like this. So is there pressure on the Pistons side? 100%. They have to actually build a team around him. And I think most of the pressure is probably on them to build a good team. But there is a lot, just as much, I guess you should say, on Cade to be worth this contract. He has to improve as a finisher around the basket. JB Bickerstaff spoke about this at his introductory press conference. We'll talk about it a little later. He has to get back to looking more like I think this had a lot to do with how last season went, but an engaged, impactful defender. Continue to improve on your jump shot. He made really good progressions this past year. Continue to get better. Really, Cade just needs to take a step in every facet of his game to become worthy of this contract and be the all-NBA player I believe he can become within the next 2 years. So pressure on the Pistons, pressure on Cade, but they both are accepting of this pressure and think they can make it work. I think they can as well. So acknowledge that. Be happy. Be excited. The Pistons have a franchise player. They just signed their franchise player. Be happy about that. Be excited about the future, but also acknowledge the pressure that is coming with it because Cade has, Trajan Langdon has, so sort of the Pistons fan base. So let me know what you guys are thinking about the Detroit Pistons signing Cade to this 5-year rookie extension in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, JB Bickerstaff was introduced today. Sadly, I wasn't able to be there. I was flying in to Detroit from Iceland. I was able to watch it afterwards, though. Quite a few interesting things, including, I think, the most interesting thing, an update on Ausar Thompson. GameTime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I'm a procrastinator. I wait to the last second with everything, whether it's buying tickets to a Pistons game, whether it's buying tickets to the movies, whether it's buying tickets to my favorite comedy event, whatever event there is, I wait to the last second every time. And oftentimes it screws me. I pay a ridiculous price. I get a bad seat because all the seats are taken. Ends up screwing me over all the time. But with GameTime, I am absolutely safe. They have last-minute deals that you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for, again, sports, concerts, comedy, theater events near you. You got flash deals, you got zone deals, you got all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. And probably my favorite thing about it is that you get to see the view of your seat in the app. You don't have to show up to the event, be shocked about where you're at, and be like, oh my God, shouldn't have gotten these seats. No, you'll know in the app when you purchase your tickets, or even before you purchase your tickets, what the seats look like so you know you're getting the best possible one. So download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed with GameTime. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free to available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Before we move any further, I'm going to say it again. There have been officially nine NBA channels. The Locked On Bulls beat us. Pat, Hayes. I thought I was going to catch y'all, but, we can still catch y'all. But 9 Locked On NBA channels have hit 10,000 subscribers. We are 1,500 away. We are close. So if you are watching or listening on the podcast platforms on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Help us become the 10th Locked On NBA channel to hit 10,000 subscribers. We want to be the next one. We want to be the next channel. We don't want any other teams passing us up. We want to be the next one. So please hit that subscribe button. I really would appreciate it. All right. So today I was flying in from Iceland. The Detroit Pistons had their introductory press conference with JP Bickerstaff. So I wasn't able to, I could have been there, but like I said, I was on a plane. And I wasn't able to listen to it while on the plane because for those of you guys that may not know or follow me on Twitter, planes give me incredibly amount of anxiety. I do not like planes. So I tried my hardest to sleep the entire time. So I wasn't sitting there staring at the screen, staring at my window, wondering, hey, am I going to make it to Detroit? But so yeah, I wasn't able to listen during the flight. But once I got home, I watched it and paid attention to it. By far, 100%, the biggest takeaway, the most important takeaway from this press conference is Trajan Langdon giving us an update on Ausar Thompson. I know that he was not included on the Summer League roster. Marcus Sasser and Ron Holland are, by the way. There's a lot of stuff that happened in the last few days. It's going to take a while, like next few episodes, to catch up on all this news. I can't do it all in one episode. But Ausar is not on the Summer League roster, which I saw in the Pistons community caused a lot of confusion and a lot of questions like, is Ausar okay? Like, do we have an update? Is he not doing better? Like, what's going on? Is he all right? Like, and reasonably so. He was dealing with blood clots. Blood clots are a serious health concern. This is not like, I'm not trying to minimize like breaking an ankle or like, spraining an ankle, like stuff like that. But I would say, obviously, blood clots are a little bit more like concerning. So I completely understand people's concern about it. And the fact that we hadn't gotten an update about Ausar since really they announced that he was out for the season with blood clots. So with all that going on, there's a lot of questions about, how's he doing? Where is he at? Is he okay? Is he getting better? Is it not gotten better? What's going on? But Trajan Langdon confirmed at the press conference. I forget who was the one. I think it was one of the ladies with Fox 2 News, but I may be off with that, but I believe that's who it was. Asked a question, a great question about, is Ausar doing great? Is he all right? What's the update on him? And Trajan said that he actually was just cleared for full basketball activities and that he was actually currently on the court getting workouts in while the introductory press conference was going on. So that is by far the biggest, greatest news of the press conference. Knowing that Ausar Thompson, who was dealing with this type of serious health concern, knowing that he is okay, knowing that he's made the progress, everything's going according to the plan, and that he's not dealing with it, he's not dealing with it heavily still. Like, knowing all that he's okay, he should be ready by training camp, and everything's like, his health is good, that he's all right and can continue to play basketball. Knowing that's the biggest news by far out of the press conference. So I know JB Bickerstaff, he talks about some of the other stuff that is interesting, but knowing that Ausar is okay, like basketball, it's not really basketball to the side because it has to do with him resuming his career and like continuing to play with his career, but health, like him as a person, knowing that he's okay, that's the biggest deal out of all this. But outside of that, JB Bickerstaff did provide some interesting insight to some things. Now, I do want to say this. So I've been doing this for 4 years now with the Locked On Pistons. Has it been 4 years? I think maybe 3.5 years. Either way, I've seen a lot of introductory press conferences. I've seen Troy Weaver's. We've obviously seen Monty Williams. We've seen a lot of press conferences. And one of the main things that everyone, including myself over the last few years, like to do is read into the press conferences and go crazy over them. I'm not saying you shouldn't be excited over them at all. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, as I do this more and more, I'm realizing that a lot of the stuff that gets said, and I've had a few beat writers and a few people say this to me too recently, a lot of the stuff that gets said, now sometimes there is some really interesting tidbits if the coach is a good interviewer and is revealing and transparent. But a lot of the stuff that gets said at the press conference, a lot of it is just quarterback speak. A lot of it is just like what you want to hear, and they're just trying to like get through the press conference. But sometimes there is some things that you can pick up on that provides some kind of insight. And that's one of the reasons why I really like Trajan Langdon, is that he's very transparent. So I guess we'll start up with something JB said that I think the Pistons fans are going to find really interesting. Is that he spoke about wanting to keep Cade and Ivy on the court at all times. One of those guys, whether it's Cade on the court or Ivy on the court, he felt like after coaching Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, one of the things he's learned with them is that having one of those guys on the floor, trying to have one of those guys on the floor at all times, so you're not without either of them, is one of the bigger things he should be trying to do. And obviously, Cade and Ivy, I don't think they're on the level of Donovan Mitchell and Garland, obviously, yet. But the same logic applies. They're probably your two best. Cade, definitely. I think there's argument about Ivy, but your two guards, offensive players. You want your two creators, I would say, right now at least with the roster. You want to have them on the floor at the same, or at least at all times, one of them on the floor. And that was something that Monty Williams said a lot over and over in his press conferences that he needed to do, that he wanted to do. And he never did it. So that I guess that's one of the examples of why press conferences take them with a grain of salt somewhat, because we witnessed Monty last year say he was going to do these things that sound like the correct things, and then do the exact opposite when the game day came. So, I mean, I guess that's an example of that. But I don't think we've talked about Monty and why that's part of the reason why he was fired. So I don't think JB's going to be doing that. But I think that was a funny correlation there, because everyone's like, JP's finally saying this stuff that Monty was never saying. No, Monty was saying it. He just never did it. He said it a lot in his press conferences. He said the right things after games a lot. He just never actually did it. He just lied. So, I mean, whatever. It is what it is. Let's move on to the next part. The other thing I think is not so much a specific quote, but more so the overall messaging, it felt like, from Bickerstaff, was that, and it's kind of been the same thing from Trajan, and when we talk about the signings later, so far they match up with that, that it's going to be a slow, steady process, and they want to give the young guys an environment to grow and get better and develop. That he kept getting asked multiple times, but what's the timeline? What's the timeline? When are they going to be good? We know what's going on. Well, how long is it going to take? And they never revealed the timeline. They just kept talking about how we can't skip steps. We have to be organic about this. We have to take it, step by step and be slow about this. Develop our players. Get better day in and day out. And eventually we'll be there. Eventually, I think one of the main things Bickerstaff was talking about is that eventually you'll look at this team and say, hey, that team represents Detroit basketball. So, good saying, good quotes, going to get the fan base, behind you with that kind of stuff, for sure. But the more revealing thing is that it doesn't seem like they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves to try to make some massive step this year. And I think their signings match that more so. They're prioritizing developing their players. Now, they want to be better. They have to be better. They're going to be better. If they're not, I don't know what's going on, but they're going to be better. But they're prioritizing the development of their young guys and figuring out who they need to keep around this year more so, it seems like, so far. Now, again, take some things with a grain of salt. They may say these things and a trade could happen in a week. That could happen. But it seems like with their actions in free agency and with what they've said, that they are prioritizing young core development. They're not trying to skip steps. They're not trying to accelerate the rebuild. I'm not saying restore anymore, but they're not trying to accelerate the rebuild. And they're both on the same page, that JB Bickerstaff and Trajan, that's going to take a minute, and they want to, be very careful about this, which I think a lot of fans are going to like to hear. I think a lot of fans will like to hear it. But I've already seen some fans like, man, it's been 4 years and we're hearing the same stuff, which I completely understand. I completely get that after 4 years of hearing pouring the concrete, we're trying to build this thing up slow. We're doing it step by step. We're developing everyone. Hearing that for 4 years, then a new regime comes in and you're hearing the same thing. I completely understand why some fans are like, dude, okay, we get the pouring the concrete. At what point will wins matter? I get that. The only pushback I have to that is that this regime can't be held responsible for what the previous regime did. I understand that may not be like a popular answer for those who are upset. And again, I get those who are upset by that. But Trajan can't be held responsible for the fact that we've really messed up the last 4 years. Like, JB Bickerstaff can't be held responsible because Monty messed up so bad last year. Like, they can't help that. They can only control what they have now and moving forward. So I think that it's not really a specific quote that we got from either one outside of the Asar Thompson stuff. It really was just the overall messaging of, we're going to put our guys in the best position to develop. We want them to get better, and we really want to get answers on who is our young core and who is our guys to build around. That seems like the overall messaging from the press conference, and their actions back that up. So I thought JB did a good job. I think he got a lot of Pistons fans to love him with this press conference. He seems like a very transparent and rah-rah guy. I think you'll see a lot of emotion out of him, which I think fans will love. I think they are seeing that kind of transparency with Trajan, who already loved him. So I think fans are going to like this press conference. I think you guys did. I think you guys are going to like these two individuals, and hopefully like them even more as they hopefully have some success with the Pistons. But that was my biggest takeaway from the JB Bickerstaff introduction. Let me know in the comment section down below, what were your guys' takeaways from the JB Bickerstaff introduction? That was a pretty long segment, but we're not done yet. We're going to be talking about the Detroit Pistons signings and moves they have made over the last few days. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. Again, I'm going to say it again. Please hit that subscribe button. I really want to be the 10th community to reach 10,000 subscribers at Locked On NBA. I want to be able to talk, you feel me? But please hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So since I was gone, first of all, I hope you guys enjoyed the episodes I had scheduled out for you guys. I think you guys really, really loved the episode with Danny Cunningham talking about JP Bickerstaff. I was really excited about that episode. I think that episode was great. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. That's Locked On Cavs host. Really provided us a lot of insight into JP Bickerstaff as a coach, his offensive philosophy, his core philosophies, and how he coaches. I thought that episode was great. It seems like a lot of you guys loved it. But if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. I was really excited about that one. But while I've been gone, the Pistons obviously have made some moves. So let's go through each one of the moves that, I sadly wasn't here for. So Tobias, they signed Tobias Harris. I believe that happened the day I left, or the day before. I was able to talk about it a little bit. But Tobias, I thought that was a really good signing. We've been penciling in, not Ron Holland. We've been penciling in Tobias Harris as basically a $25 to $30 million investment since December, January, with their cap space and all the rumors surrounding Tobias. We don't need to get into Tobias as a player. I really like that signing. A short-term contract provides stability in the wing or forward position, spacing, scoring. I really like the Tobias Harris signing. But the two ones that happened while I was gone that I think fans are really going to like is obviously the signing of Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley is a guy who shot 41% from deep for the Milwaukee Bucks this past season. He was not the greatest defender out, let's just say that, last year. But he is a guy who is going to provide spacing and off-ball scoring for the Detroit Pistons. They very clearly, and they've said this, I'm looking up synergy charts. Not synergy. Trajan has said this many times so far. Spacing. They want to give Cade Cunningham, they want to give this young core spacing. They have to provide shooting. And they have went out there and addressed that. And Malik Beasley is going to very much help with that. On spot-up opportunities this past season, I want you guys to listen to this. On spot-up possessions this past year, 379 possessions, he was in the 96th percentile. He is quite literally one of the handful at the very, 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 very top. Like, I don't know what 96 percentile was, at like top 10 spot-up players in the NBA this past year. 1.3 points per possession for the Milwaukee Bucks this past year. Incredible transition player, 83rd percentile. That has a lot to do, obviously, with his ability to relocate in transition. He shot 48% on threes in transition. My God. Just a tremendous shooter. Catch and shooter, he was in the 92nd percentile. All jump shots, 95th percentile. And it doesn't matter whether he's guarded or unguarded. 248 possessions. He shot a catch and shoot three guarded. 87th percentile. Unguarded, he was in the 84th percentile. Unguarded threes, he shot 40%. Unguarded, he shot 47%. Now, I don't think you should be expecting him to do a lot else. Even though he does have some off the dribble stuff, with some dribble pull up, take a pump fake, dribble in, and get the thing going. It was in the 76. He was in the 76th percentile on dribble jumpers this past year. Just a really good shooter. Actually, not a really good shooter. A great shooter. He is a great shooter and a great spacer for this team. The team needed this. I really like this signing. This was a really, really good signing by the Detroit Pistons. I wonder where he slots in the rotation. That's going to be really interesting to see whether he starts or come off the bench. But he provides spacing. He was just playing for a really good team this past year, obviously, with the Milwaukee Bucks. Only 27, 28 years old. I really, really like this signing. Defensively, we'll talk about this in a future episode. It doesn't seem like this team is prioritizing defensive personnel that much. I think they're expecting JB to get the most out of non-defensive players because all their actions and signings point offense and little defense. But I'm completely cool. At this point, I'm okay with that because of how bad the spacing was this past year. And JB talked about it today. Trajan talked about it like 2 weeks ago. One of the main things you need to have to help your guys develop offensively, they have to have space to actually develop. If they have terrible spacing, they're going to be put in terrible situations, which the Pistons were this past year. So I love the Malik Beasley signing. Obviously, they also re-signed Simone Fofana to a 2-year contract. A very, very good deal for the Detroit Pistons with Simone Fofana, a very cheap contract. I had a lot of you guys asking me, why did he only sign for 2 years? Well, sign for 2 years because he is getting up there in age, even though he is, or let me not say get up there in age. He'll be 30 when he hits the free agent market next time. Even though he's only been in the league a few years, he's one of those older rookies from overseas. So he wants to get back out in free agency before he's, too old. And if he can play consistently like he played this past year, his next time getting paid is going to be incredible. And he's going to get a big time payday. So that's why it's a short-term deal. He wants to get back out there and be able to get paid before he's like 32 and no one wants to pay him. Like he wants to get back out there before 30, before 31 and get paid. Makes sense. I completely get it. In the meantime, incredible deal for the Detroit Pistons. Like incredible deal. $8 million a year for Simone Fofana. I'm surprised that no other team pursued him. I get that he was a restricted and that he wanted to go back to the Pistons, but man, I think he's a sneaky player. I don't think teams really know how good he played for the Pistons this past year. But I don't need to talk about Simone Fonteccio's stats, even though there is one stat that I found absolutely insane. It was not a big sample size, obviously, because he got hurt, but in his time with the Pistons, he was in the 99th. You guys heard that right. The 99th percentile on unguarded catch and shoot threes. That is insane. Now, again, it's an incredibly small sample size because he got hurt at the end of the year. They only played so many games, but he was ripping the leather off the ball. He was just burning the net with the Detroit Pistons. So the Pistons, I think so far you have seen, and obviously they also claimed Paul Reed off of waivers. That's a defensive center. I'm interested to see where he slots in the rotation, whether that means some other things in regards to the Pistons roster. We'll see how it plays out. So I like getting that third defensive center. It doesn't seem like they're going to be able to get a defensive starting center. Looks like they're going to try to bank on Duren getting a little bit better. But outside of that, they are prioritizing spacing. They actually went out there and addressed shooting. Unlike last year, where they said they were going to address shooting after drafting Asar Thompson and didn't. Trajan actually did. Tobias Harris, Simone Fofana, Malik Beasley. They have addressed shooting. They have addressed spacing. And also, obviously, I don't need to bring this up. We've already talked about it, but Tim Hardaway Jr. as well. But that we talked about him already. They have addressed shooting. They want to be a much better shooting team. And hopefully, the resume of the guys they brought in says they will be a much better shooting team. So I really like it. I'm happy that they're addressing spacing because it was so bad this past year. And it led to a lot of the Pistons' faults. And the roster construction when it came to shooting was, I brought it up all offseason last year. It was horrific. So I'm happy to see Trajan do that. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Longer episode. I had to give you guys my thoughts on things I've missed. We're going to dive even further into this stuff over the next few days. Don't worry. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I appreciate all of you guys making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Please hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Help us get to 10,000 subscribers. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace out.